This is Mum. I wanted to show you how to make bone broth. Hope it inspires you to make some because it's very good for you.
This is an optional step. I have found that instead of using chicken necks, I use some chicken wings. Here's the chicken necks at, I think it was about $6 a kilo. And here's the chicken wings at $9 a kilo. What I do with these is because they actually have a lot of meat on them, I will roast them. I'm getting them ready now to go into a roasting dish. And then when they go cold, I can actually take all the meat off, pick all the meat off. I freeze this meat usually in 2 separate bags because this is 2 kilos. And when I make chicken soup, if I want it to be chunky with chunky veggies and things, I will use half that pulled apart chicken meat to throw into my soup. I also use chicken meat that's already been cooked in salads. If I make some quinoa salad, chuck the chicken into there. Previously, when I used to make the stock, I would have brought thighs, chicken thighs and all of that, which is more expensive per kilo. And I didn't roast it before. I would just slow cook it. And when you cook chicken for, 10 hours or so, the meat becomes rubbish basically to use. It's just too overcooked. But here, if you roast it for your normal amount, like about 40 minutes, I think an hour, see what this looks like, then it's usable, yummy meat. Okay, so now we have roast chicken legs, and I'm going to pull them out, and when they get cold, take all the chicken meat off. Okay, so we've roasted our chicken wings and they're still warm. You can do this process cold or warm. I'm just going to start pulling off the meat. So the reason I do this, just to remind you again, is so that we get to use the roasted bones, because that's apparently provides a bit extra taste in your stock when you make it. So they're not wasted. I just do that. Like, they don't have to be spotlessly clean. And we're going to keep the meat, which has just been beautifully roasted, instead of overcooked in a crock pot. When you cook making stock, or the bone broth, sorry, you cook it in a crock pot for like anywhere between 9 and 14 hours or something, 16 hours. You really can't overdo it, but it does overdo the meat. So for this reason, I roast the chicken, and it makes the bones even yummier, making yummier stock. So just pulling off the meat. It's great to roast chicken wings because they're cheap, and it's just the perfect meat for putting into soups and salads, and so nothing's wasted. You don't have to be fussy, just for pointing out, it's just the gristles, everything, throw it all in. Doesn't matter if there is still some meat. I'm just getting the bulk of it off. See, it's really nice meat to go in salads and soups. It's just great. So I do it because nothing is wasted. It's cheap per kilo and you get to use it all. So I have now completed it, and here's from 2 kilos of chicken chicken wings, I've got all this meat. Now, we don't eat bread anymore or wraps or anything, but this would be perfect stuff to chuck into your sandwiches and wraps. It's certainly great stuff to throw into soups and salads. So that's the meat that you keep. I usually split this up into freezer bags and freeze it so it's on hand. And here's all your bones, right? Now you'll see that they're not being picked clean, they're just quickly being done. Gristly bits, the skins bits are all hanging off here, little bits of meat. It's okay to have some meat. Now importantly, I just realised there's a missing chicken bone back here. There's all this, let me just see if I can get this better without having the phone in the soup. There's all this stock swimming around, fat and everything. Don't throw that out. That is gold. That goes into the soup broth pot that you go to make with your bones. So don't chuck that out. That's really great stuff. Also used fabulously for making gravies, which we don't eat anymore either. So stay tuned for the next section when we're putting the broth together. Okay, here is my 8-litre crock pot, slow cooker, whatever you like to call them, and I'll just turn the camera around. There's another one over here cooking my corned beef today. That's a 5-litre one, and I'm going to be buying a 3-litre one because sometimes I just need little small things, a couple of pieces of meat, and when there's just the two of us, it's the best way to do it. Okay, so there's those chicken bones that we've just done, so I'm going to pop them into here and put in that fat. Kelly, you know how we talked about how that fat goes cold and you scrape it off afterwards? That's what probably most of that is, but it's still delicious to cook it with the fat in it. And some of that will be retained anyway. That's what I do. So we then put in the next part I'm going to show you tomorrow morning when I actually start the process, or tonight. Bye. Good morning. Okay, we're back again to get the chicken broth assembled. I'm doing it early in the morning because I want it to cook all day for about 8-9 hours, and then at the end of it you'll see what we do to bottle it all up. Okay, so I've already, as we did late yesterday, we've got the cooked roast chicken wings and that sediment left over, the fats and stuff, and here we have our chicken necks. It's a cheaper cut of meat, and I've left this raw. We're just going to add, this is all thought out, add this meat to here. Don't cook that with it. Throw that in, and I usually don't put too much spice and stuff in it because you never know what you want to use it for, to cooking stews and things afterwards. So just keep it tasty but not overly spiced. So I put in 3 or 4 bay leaves. Very important is to put vinegar in there, usually about 3/4 of a cup, but I'm putting a whole cup in there. You never taste any of the vinegar. That's I've just chosen apple cider vinegar. You never taste any of it, but it's a vital ingredient to help extract the calcium out of the bones when you're cooking. Okay, and then from here on, it's just water. Top it all up with good old, straight out of the tap kitchen water. Now the recipe follows for whatever amount of meat you've got in there, and I've got about 3 kilos it's considered, even though we've taken the meat off those chicken wings. It's about 3 kilos of meat in there. I would have liked more meat. If we can zero in on this, I've got my cameraman Dad helping today. The level of water is just so that it just covers the meat. Usually there's a lot more poking out and stuff and it's up higher, but today that's all we've got, is just enough water to cover the meat. And that's it. It's not that hard to make. Oh, don't forget some salt. Sorry, girls. A good dose of salt in this sort of thing is great. Here we go, just a little teaspoon. Throw that in. And put your lid on, of course. Here we go. Give it a stir. Because I've got gloves on, I'm just giving it a stir with my hand there, the salt. And that's it. I'm going to put it on high, get it going, and then for the rest, after about 2 hours, I turn it down to low and let it cook for about 8 hours. It's very approximate. I look at it and go, yeah, that's done enough. The longer the better, but a good 7-8 hours is a good start. Okay. Okay, welcome back to Mama's kitchen, Mama Deb's kitchen. Our stock is ready to be bottled up. So I've turned it off and let it cool for just a little bit. It's still very hot because we do want to deal with it. Now, everything else is easy. It's cooked for about 9 hours, this stock, and I've had to do nothing to do with it while it's cooking. I've done a billion other things. That part of it is easy peasy. Now, this is where the work comes in, okay? I won't kid you, but to make it easy, you just got to get organised. And once you've done it a couple of times, it's a piece of cake. You know what you're doing. You need a colander. That's going to be used to strain the bones. Then you need a fine strain, because once you've strained the bones, there's still a lot of other stuff in there, and so you'll be wanting to strain that before you pour it into the jar. So let's get going. It's a gross looking thing at first. Sorry, I forgot one thing. And also like to get a ladle. Yeah, and because of my I don't want to lift things too heavy, I do it in sections. Okay, so I'm going to just start lifting out these chicken necks and chicken bones out of the stock. Okay, so, oops, try not to make too big a mess. I think I'm missing a bowl here, but I'm going to proceed anyway. I've got a bowl underneath here to capture it, and I'm basically just throwing the bones into the colander. They're all broken up. There's pretty much no meat on them. They're a bit of a mess. and throwing them into the colander to strain away so that there's just going to be bones and a little bit of the stock goes inside there. So I'm going to continue to do this, okay, and then I'll come back to you so you don't have to watch the whole process. One sec. So here we are. I have strained all the bones, ladled all the bones out, put it into a colander, and the little bits of soup stock has dripped through there. So we've still got a whole bunch of stock here. The other thing I have lined up is a plastic bag, and I'm going to basically scoop these bones into that bag so that they can go into the rubbish bin. Just to correct the terminology, I didn't scoop, I just tipped them out straight into the bag. Okay, now because it's heavy, all of this stock, quite a lot, I like to ladle it into here so it is still catching all the juice. So I'm just ladling it off. You might have the strength to lift it safely, but I just feel this is a bit better for me to ladle it in. So I'll continue to do that till I get to a pot where I think, yeah, that's full enough for me to handle. You will see that as I'm ladling it, there are a few, where are we? Take my word for it, there's a couple of pieces of bone and, you know, things get caught into this colander still. I'm going to continue to do that and I shall return with the next step. Okay, I have finished ladling as much of that stock as I would want to. So there it is there. Sorry, I shouldn't call it stock, it's broth, bone broth. But there you go, there it is. And I'll just point out that I have all these jars that I got as I was buying the bone broth initially at $30 a jar, okay? $30 a jar, I think they sell these for. I've got 5 of them lined up for the quantity that I expect to be able to fill. So I've got the remainder bones and things that I had pulled out when I ladled it because I used a spoon that had holes in it. And now we can pour it into these jars, but I like to strain because there's further mess in there. So I think this is where I usually would have had a different bowl. I thought I was missing one. One sec. Okay, this is an amendment to what I had said before. Instead of putting it into this bowl, that colander onto this bowl, you really need to put it into a big bowl. Let's see if I can show you. This is what I do. And it's come up to here with stock, broth, and I'm going to just lift this out and it drains it away so that there's bones left over in there, okay? It's all very gross looking, I know. And then I'll probably just throw this on top of my crock pot over there that's still got more stock. And then I'm tipping this into that jug, but to do so, I put the strainer. The reason why it's important to put it into this big bowl first is because you do want to strain it. If you try to strain it straight into your jar, you'll end up having stock going everywhere, even if it's got a spout like this, because going through this, just trust me, I've done this a billion times. So strain it into here. So now I'm pouring it into a jug that has a spout, and I've caught this stuff in here, okay? That's the sediment that I wanted to catch. So now I have the purest of the liquid gold, and I can simply just pour it into my jar without having a strainer on top of it, because as soon as you put the strainer on top of it, it makes a huge mess. Now I'm only going to fill it up to here because I'm going to be putting mine into the freezer, and you probably will want to do so too, because you're going to probably fill 4 or 5 jars and you're not going to use it straight away. It has a fridge life of about 4 or 5 days in the fridge, and that's usually after you've made the soup. So I try and make it, refrigerate it, and then put it into the freezer the very next day so that you can keep it in there for weeks, months, and just pull out what you need, defrost it, and turn it into soups or put it into casseroles or whatever, and then it's only got the 4 or 5 days from there. Okay, so I've still got a little bit more left here, so I'm just going to put that to the side. And now we go back to the process of taking the colander, which I dumped over here on the... Oh, I'm making a mess because I'm not thinking straight. I put the colander on top of the soup stock bowl, put it back on top of that bowl, catch your ladle, start ladling it back into there to catch any big floaty bones, which you will, and because I'm using this type of a ladle to get all that fluid out rather than picking it up and pouring it, you might have the strength to do that. As I said, we just ladle in there, and I've really caught some big bones here, as you can see. Okay, and it's all getting caught in the colander. And when I think I've got enough in the colander with the big bowl underneath, just repeating, I will strain it into this bowl with the little fine mesh strainer and then pour it with the spout into my jar. Okay, easy peasy. 1 sec. Okay, so here I have, out of that lot, 4.5 jars of liquid gold, the chicken stock. I used to get 5 to 6. It's because that crock pot, when I've covered the, fill it up with water to cover the meat, the bones, because those chicken wings or whatever meat I used were much more thicker and fatter because they had all that meat on it, you'd fill it up more. And I think the stock broth was a little bit more diluted. Now that I'm roasting it and putting pure bones in there, not plumped up with meat, I'm not covering it as much, not putting as much water. So the stock is much more concentrated, but consequently I'm only getting 4.5 litres. But that seems to be good enough for me. I'm quite happy with the quantity because I know I've really got some really good quality stock. The jars that I using are from, like I said, that I've paid $30 a bottle for, and I've got screw top lids, and I just keep reusing these. They go back in the dishwasher, they come out crystal clear, and I use them for the next lot. Because they're boiling hot still inside here, really hot to touch, just putting the lids on really loose, don't screw them down. It'll probably preserve like that's what you do with preservatives. The heat sucks in the lid and it pops down and everything, and that's great. But I'm going to put mine in the freezer because it's not going to be staying in the fridge. And so you want the lid on just kind of loose, but be very careful and don't put it in the fridge while it's boiling hot. You're going to let it go down, cool down a bit, and then put them in the freezer, but be very careful handling them. A couple of weeks ago, I wasn't careful enough and it slipped out of my hand because I was holding onto it with the lid, and of course the lid came off because it wasn't as secure as it was supposed to be. Consequently, I've got chicken stock still seeping somewhere from the fridge in there, but anyway, that's another story. You can buy 750ml plastic containers, those little round ones, clear. I've got some in the cupboard somewhere. You get them from the discount store. I think even Coles and Woolies sell them. Packets of 5, packets of 10. They are great as well. Just use them if you don't want to go down the road of jars. And you just reuse them. The sound you can hear is everything's in the dishwasher. My crock pot goes in the dishwasher, all the strainers, colanders, and my bag of bones is ready to tie up and pop in the bin as soon as they cool down a bit. I hope you will try it because this makes some delicious soups and uses as basis for all casseroles and things. Plus, of course, you can just drink it and it doesn't taste like seawater, Kel. It tastes delicious. You will want to drink it, truly. Okay, that's all from Mama Deb. Till next video. Bye.